Good morning, everybody. John Spielkel here for Gen AI News Briefing from GAI Insights Radio. Top news, essential, important, or optional, creating time in your day and leisure in your afternoon. Okay, we've got some very interesting articles today. We get everything from some new announcements by Microsoft saying OpenAI is a competitor. Who knew? All the way to some interesting new multimodal models that are superior to multiple expert models by being aware of what kind of input and modality they're doing the analysis of, and many in between. So great to have a group of our analysts here today. Luda, Adam, David, Paul, Ankash. Let's have at it. Ankash, start us off with the first one.
Thanks, John. So the first one that we have for today comes from Microsoft and OpenAI. So Microsoft, in its latest report, has now listed OpenAI as a competitor in both AI and search.
Adam, shocking. What do you think here?
Well, I could just say yes, right? Yes, they are a competitor. I guess the big deal is the recent announcement about the search GPT has probably pushed them over the edge in terms of acknowledging that threat. It shouldn't come to many as much of a surprise. They joined the ranks of Anthropic, Amazon, Meta, and Google amongst companies they consider competition. But Microsoft also does a lot of business with companies that they're competitors with. It's interesting, Paul, in this article, it talks a little about they're trying to differentiate Copilot compared to like the OpenAI GPT. And they also recently had some acquisitions, was it with Inflection? It's bringing some of their executive staff over. So Microsoft's trying to do their part, I think, to distance themselves from OpenAI, but also obviously they have a very, very close partnership as well in terms of the compute and the inference. So all in all, it's not, there's not much news here, I guess, is the long and short of it. I gave it an optional.
Yeah, and Adam, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm an enterprise customer. I use Azure. They're still going to sell me a OpenAI enabled offering, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is
all right.
Competition.
Yes. So who knows why they're putting this out? Maybe to fend off the lawyers from the antitrust. We shall see. All right. Optional it is. Ankaj, next.
Okay, the next one comes from Tech Target and is written by John Moore. He talks about how GenAI strategy is dictating ROI challenges for IT leaders.
All right. We have a walk through different kinds of costs and benefits here. David, what do you think of this walk in the garden?
Yeah, so this article basically talks about a lot of the issues we've been talking about for a long time, right? How do you measure the ROI on getting a Copilot subscription? When you buy a subscription for a bunch of enterprise users, it says, hey, one way you can do that is do an employee survey. It talks about negotiating your licenses to keep the cost down. And then on the flip side, it talks about, if you're using, for example, models in the cloud, as opposed to just buying an application that has GenAI inside, it gets really expensive, and talks about how you can manage your cloud expenses a bit, for example, using Kubernetes management. I rated this optional because I feel like what they're discussing here is, I'd be surprised if AI leaders weren't experiencing this or already using some of these approaches to try to minimize their costs. I suppose there could be an argument for important, as it summarizes all of that, and maybe somebody's not aware. But to me, it felt a little bit like, yes, we know, sort of a little bit of the similar stance as we took on the previous article. So I went optional on this one.
All right. We got one vote for optional. Not that I'm running a democracy here. I just want to be clear about that. It's a republic. Okay.
Republic yeah, I mean, I think, John, interesting your and Adam's point of view. I mean, I should share a little bit that call I had with that CTO of a 40,000 person company, very well regarded company, highly profitable. They have 600 copies of Copilot for 40,000 employees. They're trying to figure out if they can justify the license for 10,000. The CFO says, Luda, whose head's coming out? You know, show me the cost this year or show me the revenue, and it's hard at that level. And Microsoft's saying you can have this for $1. So this is, you know, 6-figure plus investment.
Yeah, I would say, guys, we should, well, at least I would suggest we put it as important. The reason being that everybody, yes, it's no news, right? Everybody's watching the ROI and struggling how to define it. So that's, and this introduces or talks about some tools. It talks about the trade-offs and that you need to think about. And I think it's an important article from that perspective. Sort of put it out there, and this will be a theme that we'll see probably more and more. So I would rate it as important.
Okay, from down under, what's the opinion here?
I was a bit on the fence. I think David actually made the case for important for me. I was leaning towards optional, but I think there's a bunch of stuff in here that we might expect they already know and they might not, right? So it might be worthwhile, as Luda said, just to flag it out as a bit of a checklist of considerations. The thing that probably really struck me is the back of the envelope calculation, right? It's astounding to me when you think of it as, $30 a month per head. How can we possibly justify this? It's such a different conversation than 34 minutes a month you have to save to justify it per employee. Like if you can't get 34 minutes a month out of GenAI, well, then you don't have the right adoption and the right onboarding. And
Adam, but the CFO's not saying that. Adam, the CFO is saying, I don't care about the minutes you save. I want heads out.
Yep. And I want more sales. Right?
More sales. Show me specific.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I think those are two separate things. I mean, certain management teams are willing to push down labor faster, and you'll get the money. I'd be willing to bet if you stuff Copilot in and you cut a bunch of heads, you get the money. But it's just not their style of doing it. You know?
I mean, John, we had the same problem with browsers and emails. Remember early days of browsers and emails, no one could justify.
Yeah, true. I mean, any software. Anyway, all right. After my long deliberation, sitting in the chair of Peter, ex-Catherine, I'm gonna go for important here. We're gonna go for important in honor of Charlie Munger, who in Poor Charlie's Almanac, the partner of Warren Buffett, believed in checklist thinking. Unfortunately, this is not organized as a checklist, but this does have checklist potential. All right. Important is next.
Next one is a research paper which talks about efficient early fusion pre-training with mixture of modality-aware experts.
Yeah, lots of performance improvements here. A new meaning for MoMA. To me, MoMA's always meant Museum of Modern Art, but here we have modality-aware model. Luda, what do you think?
I rated it as optional, but it is something we'll flag in our newsletter. It's a push for multimodal models together. So what they do, they represent text and images in the same transformer as tokens. And then this type of models have been introduced by Chameleon Meta, and they are very hard to scale. So, and they're not efficient in terms of cost. So there's a lot of discussion about how you do that. And very successful, 3x to 4x improvement in performance, in cost performance. So this is great, but very esoteric, like it goes into a lot of technical details that I think our audience shouldn't really read. But the notion that this is happening is good to know. So optional.
All right, we're going to get the big O out here. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with optional. This got deeply, deeply technical. I had ChatGPT up helping me through this article. And what it boils down to is a mixture of experts approach is more efficient, which is, again, not new news. This is a slightly different approach to it, focusing on using a specific modality for each expert. But I think the AI leader can let this one be.
It's interesting. I was going to make the case for important. And by the way, I think, David, the thing you said about using ChatGPT as your coach in terms of technical documents. I do that all the time. I think it's fantastic, and I think more people should do it. And also, we should, as we recommend, things, I think we should assume, or at least instruct our AI leader to use those models and have our, difficulty. You guys have much less faith in the technical ability of our AI leaders than I do. I just want to say the I was going to make a case for important because look, you've got significant decrease in the processing power necessary to have better images. 3 times, 4 times, 5 times more efficient. Second, this notion of compound AI, which Paul hates but the world loves, of multiple experts, and this goes down that route. And the third, and perhaps to me most influential thing, is these are folks from Meta, right? They're gonna, in their open source models and in their vast volume of distribution, arguably the best distribution or among the best distribution on the planet, I think maybe and will be setting architectures for our AI leader. And I'm convinced it's going to be some version of this. MoMA will be for the large language models as we get into complex data sets. So for that case, I was going to say, look, you should be aware that this is coming from the gorilla.
And it may tie back also to the earlier thing, to the extent that we really do get hyper scalable, efficient solutions, that ROI, Adam, will fall, because the cost should fall for the cost of Copilot for 40,000 employees.
Yeah. Adam, what do you think? Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, I feel like our newsletter gives us the ability to flag the overarching idea as important without telling the AI leader to go ahead and spend time reading this one, which would be my recommended approach.
But remember, important is still at discretion. Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, John, I agree with some of your things, that this is an important development and it's Meta doing this. However, if you go down to number 6, limitations, there are significant limitations yet for even other people who are not as versed in how to combine the text and images in the transformer. They can't really use it. So that's why it's yet optional until it integrates into what we do out there in the world. So that, I think we're flagging it, like David said, in the newsletter, but I don't think the leader should slug through it with the help of ChatGPT or not through this work yet.
Adam?
Yeah, I'm with Luda on this. The last sentence in the first part there, right? It talks about the results demonstrate the potential, paving the way for more resource efficient systems. So yeah, it's very forward looking. If I were an AI leader and I were looking at GAI Insights to tell me what I need to pay attention to, I'd probably shake my head and say, why did they tell me to read this?
No. All right. I like the Bangladeshi prime minister who finally succumbed to 6 weeks of protests. I will be overwhelmed by the mob, and we will go for option.
Adam, we're going to build John a throne. I mean, it's really a throne in one of those big.
But he needs that glass around it, right? So people can throw things.
You need to do it to him. I mean, 6 weeks is not enough,
I'm just saying, look, this is very American. The Federalists used the Alien and Sedition Act to go after, their opponents. So I'm just being American here. All right, go for it. Optional it is.
Okay, the next one comes from character.ai. So character.ai CEO Noam Shajir, he is returning back to Google. Google is licensing some of the models and will also be hiring a few of the people from character.ai.
Paul, what do you think here?
This is absolutely optional for our leader. This is big companies doing acquisitions by hiring employees on a license deal. We've seen this with Microsoft and Inflection. We've seen this with, I think it was AWS and Adept. This is clearly where the lawyers are guiding them. I think it shows the power that these people have, the large companies have, and the essentiality. They've got to get this top talent. But character's over, and this is optional for the leader.
It's so sad, though.
Why is that, Luda?
Everyone's making money. Everyone's making money. Investors made money. These employees have unbelievable packages.
Yeah, I agree, Paul. Yeah. But I would have loved to have one like independent, not a model one, not a Google, come up and go public or something. Like Character AI has had the potential, and they really did. Sorry.
The oligopoly is here, and it's not moving.
Well, what ended up happening is they gave Meta some really good ideas and they executed on them and they hung themselves.
Well, and Musk was rumored to be looking at buying them, and they either didn't like him or he was faking.
Yeah, I think it really speaks to the fact that the people who want to do the leading edge research on the big models know that it's going to be super capital intensive.
Yeah.
You know, they've got AZ, Interzine behind them and so forth. The cash flow coming out of the big guys is just.
But I think a shrewd move for Google, who's been behind in a lot of these moves, that they're at least catching up, and maybe Microsoft looked at it and said, "Boy, we can't touch this again because we're already getting too many lenses on us."
Yeah, I think for Google this is great. I don't know how much Character AI will retain its angle and capabilities. I hope it wouldn't drown within Google.
So I'll just put a little slant. Oh, what's that, Paul?
I said we'd guess by end of next year, Perplexity and Character would be acquired. So Acquire's already been, and Perplexity's got to be soon, I imagine.
Yeah.
So I was going to add, just from the technical perspective, though, Character AI is absolutely, I guess, an innovative leader in the space in terms of optimizing inference and dealing with the high volumes that literally no one else is seeing. We had our article, I just went to the ratings page, it was back in June, about optimizing AI inference at Character and how they, even at the time, they were estimated to be seeing 20+% of the Google volume search on a daily basis in terms of the number of LLM chat requests they get. So both then and then, actually just last week, we have articles about their research and about the ways that they're really leading the charge in solving some of the big problems. So I'd be interested to, I think there's competitively some advantages for Google in the search space to leverage what Character has been learning as well. So I think it's a symbiotic.
But Adam, that's why I'm so shocked that Zuckerberg didn't pick him up. And he's happy to buy companies at a premium price that are.
Well, I don't think they're selling, right? They have a non-exclusive agreement. Google has a non-exclusive agreement, but Character is non-exclusive as well, right? They might have picked up some of their leaders, but I think that's sort of the idea is we're gonna insulate ourselves by a really tight partnership with Google, and then no one can buy us.
Yeah, so interesting.
We'll see.
In reading about Andrew Carnegie, the person who built, U.S. Steel, and when he sold it for 1.5% of the U.S. GDP. His thing was he would chase anyone that could teach him more about steelmaking. Like Frick, that was one of his executives, and he's a legendary engineer. Anyway, same thing here, right? They're just going after the talent. And in terms of the Justice Department, my goodness, I mean, you've got, you look at the presidential candidates. As far as I can tell, Donald Trump is going to, let the folks in Silicon Valley do whatever they want. He'll complain, but he'll let them do whatever they want. And then Kamala Harris is very deep with Silicon Valley, so I don't think you're going to see any kind of breakup of this oligopoly. I think antitrust will continue to be dead. Thank you, President Clinton. He was the one who really kind of started that whole process. So I think these folks are going to be able to do anything they feel like. So there you have it.
Maybe with some guardrails. Come on.
What's that?
Maybe with some guardrails.
No, none, zero. Think about the acquisitions of Facebook. I mean, any concentration ratio. I was on the board of a company that was a food distributor. We had to divest because of Hart-Scott-Rodino, because we get over 25% in a particular market. The concentration ratios in these businesses are ridiculous. They've just argued that it's so hard to figure it out, and it's baloney. It's just plain old power, man, and they got it. All right, next.
Okay, the next one comes from Ethan Mollick, and he discusses the new OpenAI voice GPT and some other voice GenAI tools that we have as of now.
All right, Adam, the pregame warm-up. You gave this a big O. You still there?
Yeah, I'd like to see someone try and convince me otherwise. Look, it was a good read. It's an interesting article. I think Ethan does a great job of telling the story and really painting the picture. He illustrates it with some audio examples as well. But really, at the end of the day, it's the Apple model with Siri is small. It runs on the device. Yeah, it's secure, but it doesn't do much. And OpenAI is the wild, wild west with all its almighty power. And with great power comes great responsibility. I don't think there was anything really insightful per se in terms of pushing the conversation forward. It was more sort of sharing a view of what I hope many people are already aware of.
Hey, Adam, one question for you. Do you have a guess as to, let's say the 405 billion parameter model, that Meta dropped, let's call that, one of the frontier models, which people do. How long do you think before that size model will run on a phone? 2 generations of phones, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, by this time next year.
Well, I was thinking more like about 36 months. I think the phone cycle is about 18 months. So 2 phone cycles, 3 years.
Oh, I think in Android we're probably getting closer to every 6 months. We see them pushing some envelope. And with the iPhone, what is it, the 16 that's coming out? It's expected next month or November at the latest, right? We're going to see all sorts of NPUs and on the Samsung side and the Android side, they're bringing the AI devices to market quicker.
Yeah, with the NPUs, could you run the Meta model on this coming generation? That's what I'm trying to.
Well, I mean, we won't be running. We'll be running the equivalent of a 405 billion. It won't be that big by then, right? You look at even the research earlier tonight about the way they're getting smaller models that are running at this higher performance because of what they're learning with the training. Okay. I think within a year the capabilities of the devices will match their ability to pare down into smaller, more capable models.
But I think, Adam, what there are 2 points here. One is about the models and about Siri versus ChatGPT, but the fact that it's text and what he's saying, the voice, that what he's saying is it's not as clear, right? That the voice will change. The fact that we can communicate in voice across the board without limitations, that's what will make a tremendous shift. And it is happening, even though it's not quite there yet, right? But it is happening as we speak. And when the hardware catches up a little bit, and it will be there with both Siri and ChatGPT and other models. Oh, yeah. And then what's behind it, it doesn't really matter whether it's calls or to agents or whether it's on device, both will improve. So, but the voice communications is important. So I actually thought that it is important to flag and put important on it.
All right, we got one thing for important here. Whole new interface, AI's new UI.
I'm supporting optional on this one. It's essentially, he's doing a review, right? He's gotten early access to a limited version of what Siri will be eventually. And excuse me, the new ChatGPT voice capability, which is faster than the one that you have now. So, I mean, yes, we know voice is important. It's kind of the new UI and it's coming, but reading this early review, to me, I don't know.
Was he paid for this? Do we know if he was paid?
He says that he's never paid by any company for his reviews.
Yeah, let me make the case for important. It's coming. I think the illustrations are great. If you haven't listened to him, they're fantastic. Where he interrupts the quality of voice interaction with the new one is really quite impressive. I found it quite impressive. The other thing is that voice has a ton of information in it that people are really just waking up to. So, for example, in medicine, we know one of our conversations with a leading, GenAI leading healthcare insurance company implementing GenAI is using voice for diagnosis, the voice capture of the doctor interacting with the patient, not only to decrease the amount of time on administration from 10 minutes to 1, but in also providing diagnostic information. Does this patient have heart disease or COPD or other things? And I think there's so much information in voice. I've told the story before about the work out of CMU. So I think every AI leader should be thinking carefully about what voice is, because voice isn't going to be the very stilted, limited interaction. And that, to your point, Adam, is going to be on phones soon, 12 months, 24 months. It's not 60 months, whatever the number is. So within their tenure, average tenure of a CIO, I think, is less than 5 years. Who knows what it is for an AI leader? In their tenure, they're going to have to deal with voice, I believe. So that's my case, Adam. I don't know how. I'm leaving it all in the field, baby. Did I make it? Did I make it over the goal line? Too important.
We have Paul to break the tie.
Democracy. Okay.
I don't want to argue with the dictator in the throne with the 6-foot piece of chalk. It's cute, Adam, this little discussion we're having, but I think the decision's already made. It's in my mind, if you ask me, that's optional. We've talked about this trend for a lot. This article's optional.
All right. I will succumb to the optionality. All right, optional it is. Next.
Okay, the next one is from a publication called Every, and they talk about the great AI unbundling.
Yes. So what do we have here, David?
Yes. So this article essentially equates where we are with GenAI and ChatGPT like tools right now to when Excel first came out. And it makes the argument that a lot of additional software, which were kind of, customizations per se, or slapping a different user interface on some version of Excel in the background. And it was only after Excel was around for a while and people were using it and finding their kind of niche with it, that then developers and software companies could build some kind of application on top of it. So it's saying we're kind of at that place with ChatGPT and the like today. And so interestingly, we're talking earlier about the fact that it's really capital intensive to have your own model and customize it, et cetera. This is essentially making an argument for what we've been calling AI wrapper type applications, and saying that they do have some utility and in fact will be pretty powerful and pervasive at some point. So it's a short little piece that makes that interesting argument. And I was kind of actually borderline optional important on this, just because I think the idea is a good one to put into the head of a leader in AI as they're making their decisions of what types of applications they want to bring to the organization, or they're part of that decision making anyway. So I could be convinced of important on this one, but I don't have a very strong stance on it. So I'm curious as to what others think.
What do others think?
Well, I've been really trying to have AI as my co-intelligence. I really like that term. And I was working yesterday and had 3 hours where almost every single thing I did was involving the AI. And it's really interesting. So this one I stuck quickly in the ChatGPT, said, give me 3 major points of it and criticize the object. The 3 things here. I think it's 100% optional. I think the Excel thing breaks down because there wasn't breakthrough startups with high valuation around Excel, and distribution counts, and they don't talk at all about distribution here. And AI leader doesn't need to worry about the theory of startups in the next 3 or 4 years. He or she needs to worry about what solutions that can actually solve a business problem next 18 months and move the needle.
Yeah,
All right.
I was
This
also
isn't-
well
I was
because
just going to say it's an infomercial for Spiral, right? The article is basically explaining why what they've built is important.
There you go. All right, optional it is. Moving on to the last.
The last one, yes, the last one comes from Black Forest Labs, which has been launched by founders of Midjourney, I think, and talks about Flux.1, which is a text to image model.
Yes, I think it was Stable Diffusion, but yes, founders have an amazing product. Ludo, what do you think here?
I put an important on it. I was impressed by the capabilities of the model. It's a 12 billion parameter model. They released it in 3 versions: the Pro for people using it with open weights and Apache license. Then there is a development one and the personal one that you can use as well. 3 models. They beat the Midjourney and DALL-E. Very impressive, and I think our folks should know about it.
Okay, we got a vote for important. What do you think?
Adam, have you had a chance to play with it?
Pardon me?
Oh yeah, I'm playing with it right now, actually. But
And
I played with it a fair bit. It's quite impressive. I think I was actually on a space the other night talking with some people about this. Like a significant piece of news that I don't know if we even discussed is there's another tool, Leonardo.ai. I think we did, that was acquired by Canva, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, the conversation is really around if you're a professional using AI for image generation, you're still going to use Midjourney, and Midjourney still has a competitive edge. These tools and the fact that they're open source continue to show that Midjourney is under threat. The fact that Canva has gotten Leonardo is another indication of that. But it just means what we expected, which is that using these AI generated tools, whether it's in Adobe, whether it's in Canva, it's just going to get embedded into the places where professionals are already using them now, and much more quickly. But I had it as optional. I'm not sure, other than being aware that there's an open source threat to Midjourney, what an AI leader would take away from this news. And it's not easy to get access to. You have to pay someone, or you have to know how to set up your own Stable Diffusion setup, like on a GPU at home. So it's it's not for the faint of heart.
they provide the way to do it in very specific instructional set.
They have great instructions too. Yeah,
I was going
it's
to
very
say,
well done.
though, yeah. So I just think they're pushing the envelope, and our leaders should be very aware of it in this space.
Yeah, I was with Luda in terms of making it important, because combination capability, the founders are interesting, right? They've got a track record of doing spectacular stuff. And then also, if you click through the Anderson Horowitz announcement of their support of it, then it also talks about this notion. It's not completely clear from this thing if they're definitely going to do open weights, but their basic strategy of being incredibly open and then selling APIs for custom solutions seems to me a very powerful model along the lines of what Meta may end up doing. So for that combination of reasons and the importance of visualization, I gave it an important as well.
Yeah, I was a big optional on this one, I think, because of something Adam said earlier, which is, why is an AI leader going to create more work for their developer force to use this, as opposed to pay $10 a month for the few employees that they have that are doing image generation to use Midjourney? I just don't see this having a big immediate impact in the business world.
I think Luda and I would agree. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Luda. It's not a big immediate impact. Question is, any AI leader needs, the majority of folks doing production, but then your R&D and understanding where things are going in terms of influencing your vendors and architecture, I think, to me, sit in that domain.
So that I'm with John. It's really, it wouldn't impact the immediate, but to know that there is a model that is much better than Midjourney in a sense, right? So it's important, because you need to be aware of it as a leader.
All right, I just want to know, I went against my totalitarian instincts on the Ethan Mollick thing, and this is a 2-2 tie. So I'm going to break the tie and make it important. Okay. All right. Ankash, give us a top board here.
Sure, John, just coming up.
It's done well, John. Just like any good dictator, you like to, stick in, well, actually, though, look at what I did here. That wasn't a big
I have to have the appearance of democracy.
yeah.
So no essentials, 2 importance, GenAI strategy on ROI challenges for IT leaders. I kind of regret that one if we're going to put Ethan down, but that's okay. Black Forest is important. And the bunch optional. All right, we start the week without a lot of reading. Good luck, our AI leaders. Any announcements, folks? Tonight, I think we have Rosemary talking about how to think about whether or not you should open up at our learning lab, 7 p.m. Eastern U.S. time. We have Rosemary talking about whether or not you should open your sites to the crawlers and
to block or not to block the robots. Yeah.
Thank you. Much better put. Thank you. Block or not rock, a very important decision, I believe, in terms of your positioning of your organization in this new world where search is going to meld into intelligence. And with that, any other important things, David, Luda, Adam? All right. Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
Great week.